All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go4CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And I've got a pretty special guest here, Matthew Yahes, founder of, let me get my glasses on here, Extend Your Team, right? And he's founded other great businesses, showing my age that I need to get the glasses on, but virtual assistant business and exploration of scaling, operational efficiency, a lot of great things in Go4CEO community. Stay tuned because this is the type of impact that you can make on your business when you're learning about these types of areas and someone that has put, blood, sweat, and tears into these areas and really helped themselves and other businesses grow. So, Matthew Yahes, welcome to the Go4CEO channel. How are you?
Great. Nice to meet you, John.
Yeah, nice to have you on and exploring this opportunity to, share some ideas and all that stuff. So I know it says that you've been a serial entrepreneur and you've got some great things going on. We just talked a little bit about where you're at in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm having my background being partially Puerto Rican. It's pretty cool. So tell us what's been this journey the last 5, 6, 7 years. We just talked a little bit off camera, making these decisions, growing businesses, scaling, maybe bringing them to a dormant side of the business, right? And then helping others in your extend your business. So,
Sure. Let me give you the journey for me. I have not been a serial entrepreneur my entire life. Started roughly 2011, where I had gotten an opportunity to work with a very senior person in the restaurant business. And he said, this is from my previous job. And he said, why don't you come start a restaurant company with me and we'll go grow it. And I'm like, what the heck do I know about the restaurant business? He goes, you don't need to know anything. I know what you need to know. I need you to get stuff done. Come start the company. And oh, by the way, move to California because I was in New York at the time. And that's how it all started. Started a restaurant company, knowing nothing about restaurants, grew that to 14 locations, 500 people in about 4 years. Then took some time off, bought my first company, which was an e-commerce business. This is 2016, and grew that a little bit. And then, this little thing happened called COVID, right? And what happened in COVID? I had an e-commerce business. Sounds amazing, except it was in weddings. Worst business to be in during COVID, like eye of the storm. So this business that was large that I purchased became, I like to say, grew it to zero because no one could buy my products because they weren't having weddings. And so it was, $5.5 million business became not a $5.5 million business. And out of that, I lost everything, to be honest with you. And then out of that, I said, okay, what can I do? Let me start a staffing agency with people out of the Philippines because I had a few people there. And everyone was always amazed at the quality of talent I got. Pounded the phones, talked to a couple friends. Can I do this for you? Can I find people for you? They said yes. Got a lot of no's, of course. And then that's how my staffing business started. Scaled that and got pulled into another direction a few years ago. Right after about a year in, I let my Filipino team run and scale that business while I did something else, which we scaled also. And now I'm back to the staffing business and helping companies grow.
it's interesting, right? And that's part of life, right? You've gone in different directions. I feel like if there isn't a path of, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, a lot of us kind of get in this situation, right? We go for CEO, we become the CEO of our own life in different arenas and different industries. So, for that virtual business, just to kind of stay on that topic there, you pivoted from something that you felt like it was going to grow. You bought an existing business, which is a big theme right now in America, right? All these baby boomers retiring. It's hot again to buy existing businesses, but to buy something that goes down and pivoting is a big deal. So tell us about, I guess, what were your thoughts of, did you have to fly out to the Philippines? How did you start to make contacts? How did you align yourself with the right people?
Yeah. I could just say buying a business and it going to zero sucks. So I hope there's risk. I mean, I've bought, I've grown, I've done different types of entrepreneurship, but I'll tell you that is not great. So how did I start it? Like everything else these days, I actually just went on a job board on the internet. That's how I found my first people for my e-commerce business. And e-commerce, it's really common to hire out of the Philippines. And then once I found someone high level, right? She was able to hire better than me. And then what happened was she was able to access like job boards that I couldn't as an American. And having someone there to help me start the business is the only way it could have happened. I actually couldn't go to the Philippines for 2 years because it was closed. So I
Yeah.
had at the time hundreds of people in the Philippines working for me, having never stepped foot in the country. So having that person you trust, I think that's in business in general. That one key person was essential.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, to be able to have that flexibility, right? Now, the first initial steps, where did you find, you said you had a network of people that you started pitching, maybe, hey, would you like a virtual assistant? Would you like some sort of staffing growth in your business? What were the types of businesses that attracted the type of service that you had at the moment?
Yeah, so when I started, my first customer was actually my bookkeeper slash accountant. I
Mhm.
got him someone to work for him. I was a bookkeeper. Then after that, e-commerce and SaaS. So I would say those are three big use cases, and from there I expanded.
Nice, nice. And having had the restaurant experience and leading, you said up to 500 people, what was the change in being in a restaurant? Typically, I have restaurant buddies.
Yeah.
They're there all the time. It's like the 24/7 business at times, but now being remote and having to lead those people, did you start to put guardrails on maybe some uh, key performance indicators, or were you trying to manage them in a certain way, especially because they were remote?
So I think the biggest transition was when not when I had the staffing business, when I had the e-commerce, I went from restaurant to e-commerce, and that was fully remote. I would say there's definitely a lot to learn in a restaurant or any regular typical business where you go into an office. You're touching and feeling people. You're talking to them. I'm BSing with you, as I pass you in the hallway or I'm just talking to customers. You lose some of that because at the end of the day, this is, just Zoom, Zoom, Zoom. This is before Zoom became so popular. And you have to have a level of trust that you normally couldn't have, you wouldn't typically have because I don't see you every day. I just have to trust what you're doing. Personally, for better or for worse, I am not a micromanager. And I think there is some set of micromanaging that you have to have, or guardrails when you're doing remote management that you wouldn't typically have because you can just see people, but maybe not. I mean, I was always output based. If you're doing the task at hand, you're performing it well, you know what? If you are not working 2 of the 8 hours a day you're supposed to be working, personally, I'm okay with that. That's my own philosophy. Is it the
Yeah.
best for management and output? Probably not. But I also think that I also have, in all my companies, I have very low attrition. And I think that's part of the reason why. It's okay. As long as we're going forward, we're moving forward as a business. So what if you work a little less one day or the other? What does it matter? It matters directionally. Are we correct?
Yeah, I mean, you gave a great word, right? Output. And what is the scalability of someone doing something at a faster pace and shortening the amount of time, and then being able to have the extra time for whatever they want to do. I remember being a long time ago a branch manager in a bank, and I would say to my people, "Hey, look, there's 8 hours a day that we're paying you, but I know that an hour of that is lunchtime, call it. 15 minutes here and there is going to be total blow off because your brain isn't working. 30 minutes is probably a screw up. So give me 5 hours of your 8 days at a maximum efficiency, and your output, as you talked about it, is going to be more relative, right, than someone who's faking it for 8 hours. So in that sense, right?
100%. I mean, it's interesting because my wife, she was a very senior executive at as an insurance brokerage, and her attitude was when she started looking at what my people were doing, oh my God, they're ripping you off. And my attitude is, what are you talking about? I don't care. Listen, I mean, I care, but if they're working 4 to 5 hours a day and I don't have to focus on this, and I'm already playing the salary arbitrage game because of where they live, it's okay. I don't personally have to do this. I'd rather play salary arbitrage and have them work less than work them to death. They leave, they're unhappy. I just rather have people who just make my life easy. And
Yeah.
maybe that's a shortcoming as an entrepreneur, and I can admit that. But I actually think having no attrition and my stress level, instead of being here, right here, for me, that's better.
Well, look, I mean, that's a philosophical thing, I think, in business, right? Some people stay small because they don't know how to bring on talent that they feel they can do the work, right? Or they don't know how to identify and hire smart upfront and they forget to fire fast, right? So those types of things. So really interesting stuff. I mean, so help you understand, I mean, is every business kind of been a bootstrapping opportunity? I know that the restaurant you had this mentor, slash, co-owner with you. What were some of the things that you did financially to be able to kind of set the other businesses, startups and costs and administrative things to kind of implement those beginning parts?
Yeah, so I've done all different kinds. So the restaurant was funded, so we raised money.
Mhm.
The e-commerce business, a little bit of my money, but I borrowed from the SBA. And then
Mhm.
the staffing business was self-funded. But the nice thing was because my costs were essentially zero, I had one person out of the Philippines who was working for me already. It was essentially zero, and I just pounded the phone. So that was more of the typical, I bootstrapped it.
Yeah. And in that situation, when you're, selling the client, like, hey, I've got this virtual assistant team, they're out of the Philippines. Is it a contract base? Are you going month to month? Are you doing an annual, scenario? What's the thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I build it as month to month, and then if you use partial month, you get a refund. The reason I do that is at the end of the day, that's more like hiring, right? You got to have a contract, you got to have it recur. But at the end of the day, I want someone to be able to hire or fire at will.
Mhm.
And that's the only way to, I think, to do it. I've had, or I have companies with 50, 60 people, or I've had a company with 200 people, and it's a 30-day rolling contract. Because at the end of the day, if they're not getting value, then we shouldn't do business together. That sucks to be locked in, right? So I'd much rather someone be happy and earn their business every single month than, hey, get fat and happy and say like a BPO does, business process outsourcer. I got you locked in for 3 years. I don't care if you're unhappy, right? That's just not a great position to be in my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
As a client. And so that's the way I structure it. The beauty is in business, structure it the way that works for you.
So you brought up earlier that a lot of people stay with you, right? Part of that is obviously culture, your leadership style, what we just talked about, efficiency and hours worked and where you see capacity kind of, match up with the way that you want output to come out. So what are some things that you've done from a client perspective to stay in touch? If it's month to month, are they giving you a 15-day warning? At the end of the month, are you checking in? Are there any data points that you start seeking to be able to see if it's going to be a renewable, relationship?
Yeah, so we do. I mean, you have client surveys, right? You have touches. The client manager will have touch points with the client. But there's also a practical nature of this because it's a full staffing arrangement. You know, I have, Jane or Angela at a client. That client is working with Angela every single day. As long as Angela is doing her job, then there's nothing to worry about, right? If
Mm.
Angela's not doing her job, that's a different situation, John, right? But realistically, you don't hire and fire every month, right? Even if you don't know for probably 90 to 120 days how good the person is, and then maybe you make a judgment call. But really, for you to give up your resource, just practically speaking, is something you don't want to do. It happens over time, right? Of course, it happens, but it's more many, many months than it is 1 month versus the next. If someone lets go of an agent, it's because it's been a series of things that were not correctable by us or them. Well, we coach for all our clients. And then at the end of the day, we all agree, yeah, I totally understand why you're leaving or why you fire the person. But a lot of times, what does the client do? Can you get me someone else? So just because they swap out the person doesn't mean you lose a relationship.
Yeah, I mean that's it's an interesting viewpoint, right? When you start seeing the effectiveness of one, and then maybe they scale to 3, 5, 10, 15, or if
Right.
they're at 10 or 15, and how do you replace the pegs in that puzzle, right? So interesting stuff. So tell us a little bit about your own marketing. Like obviously the initial was blowing up the phone, kind of getting on there with your personal contacts. I'm assuming maybe there was some contact lists that you were cold. What were some of the approaches that you did throughout each one of the businesses? What were some marketing styles that you had to be able to, grow those businesses?
Sure. So I would say for the restaurant business, the primary one was PR.
Mm,
Because of who I was involved with, he's well known in the industry. It was a lot of good PR. We brought on celebrity chefs, that helped. So it was a PR machine, right? And versus, let's say, traditional advertising. When I went to e-com, of course, you have SEO and PPC advertising, right? So just pay the Google God, give the Google God its due, and manage it effectively. For the staffing business, a lot of pounding the phones, then referrals, now advertising. We're going to start to do PR and other intent-based marketing. There's a lot of data you can buy to be a little more sophisticated. So now we're going to get into that, as well as, we'll do more SEO as well.
nice. You know, and each one of these levels of scenarios, have you always had maybe a mentor, someone that you kind of have guidance that has gone before you, or are you kind of plowing the field yourself and trying to say, okay, hey, stub my toe on that one, but let me go back to this, or let me start, this way of doing things?
The exception of the restaurant, it's definitely just swimming with the sharks. I mean, for better or for worse, I a lot of times think I'm smarter than I really am, but I recognize that. And then it's surrounding yourself. It's not one particular mentor, but it's multiple people who just do different things and talking to them. Much to my wife's annoyance, I talk to everyone all the time about what's going on in my business, and I just get opinions. And you never know where you're going to get good advice. And that is something that I truly believe. I also join masterminds. I think there is real value in just being surrounded by other entrepreneurs who are doing things. They know things you don't. It doesn't matter if they're not in your industry. It's just good to be around them. You never know what little nugget you're going to pick up and be like, I want to do that. And so just got to be open-minded. And that's how I go figure things out.
So you go for CEO, baby. Awesome, awesome. I love that. I love that. I love that. So awesome. So are there other areas that you feel has kind of transformed the way that you thought? 2011 was kind of your first initial step into entrepreneurship, and taking that hat of entrepreneur, I like to call it, because I think you were always an entrepreneur, it seems like. What I affectionately call someone that's inside of a business, yeah, has a job, but really thinks like a CEO, thinks like a business owner, is running a division or is running their job like they're the one that owns it. That's what I think an entrepreneur is. So when you started going from that entrepreneur, in my opinion, to entrepreneur in 2011, and now it's been 13, 15, 14 years, what are some little tidbits that you've done? Obviously, the peer groups, it looks like that you've invested time and money into. Are there any specific people or programs that you've used to kind of enhance that?
Yeah. I think the first thing that it was a book. So this is I read this book by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And when I read that book, a light bulb went off because just the title, it's basically the title is the book, right? But it goes into detail. I recommend it to everybody. It makes you realize you want to get somewhere, your skills to date don't matter. You need different skills, right? To
Mm,
get to the next level of whatever that is to you, whatever you want, you need a different skill set to get there than you have today, because otherwise you would be there. So that was the first thing, was a mindset change, right? After that, courses, more books, messing around the internet, reading, playing around, talking to people, really just putting yourself out there and trying and failing, right? I think it's those who succeed, twice as much, fail three times as often. It's something, whatever the saying is. I think that's really what it is.
yeah. Yeah, and it's talking about, it's funny you said your wife kind of it sounds like my wife, a little bit more, what do they call it? Not, when someone's not gregarious, right? Like they're more introverted, is what I was trying to say. Um, my wife is like the same way, and it sounds like you and I, and people that are out there building stuff and doing things and innovating and thinking about stuff or talking to people. So I'll give you a quick off the cuff story. Last night I'm working out, and this gentleman sits down. We were watching the last part of the game of Minnesota Timberwolves. At like 3 minutes, he sits down right next to me and he just says, "Hey, do you like basketball?" And it was that "do you like basketball" question turned into an hour and a half of conversation of these types of things. And so then we exchanged information. He texted me this morning because we were talking about golf and some other areas of life. And it was so interesting to meet someone randomly, and it shows that that other person had some information about golf that I really like, because he works at a golf company called Golf Champion, I think it is, or Club Champion, sorry. And then it translated into what I'm doing, and now we have a connection. So can you share that? So obviously you're doing podcasts, you're getting yourself out there along with the businesses that you run. What are some of the things that you think are really connectors in business and the way that it's developed in your life?
I go with the masterminds and just talking to everybody. You never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
That's it. Be interested in other people. So this is what I think. My wife and I talk about this a lot. If you met most people, especially these days, do not know how to have a conversation, right? Learn, and I'm buying, it's fine. I literally bought a couple books recently to learn how to even be a better conversationalist, how to connect with people on different levels, and just what are conversation starters? How do you take this in this direction? How do you take in that direction? And for me, that is the number one thing. Learn how to ask about other people, what other people are doing, and learn how to ask about other people. I think that's just so important, and the art of conversation is lost.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting, as we become a more of a Zoom society since the pandemic, and now we're trying to break through that. I think there's a lot of desire, and it seems like the events I've gone to in person are magnetic, right? The energy's there. Like you said, the masterminds that we've gone to, I've gone to SLSs for certain people that I know, and it's pretty interesting to kind of be in that environment and see the difference. Now, we will admit, right? And I think you're in this space where AI is probably taken over some things, from the virtual assistant side possibly to e-commerce. What are your thoughts about what's going on with AI? Any forecasting or things that you're thinking about?
My personal point of view is that AI is a skill enhancer, and it's not going to devastate every job that exists. And here's why. I saw this, I'll use e-commerce as an example. I saw this in e-commerce with chatbots, so AI, well, much more advanced. So I take that, but let's look at customer service. It's still just a better version of a chatbot. And if you're like me, and I think many people are like me, unless it's a really simple question like, where's my order? What color is this? Where it's going to get delivered? And a few different things. You want to speak to a human for anything with any level of sophistication. And I think that's going to be true. For example, I was using a piece of software right before this call. I had a question. I put into the AI bot, AI for that piece of software. It could not answer me, human. So it's a triage tool. Now, in other areas, such as, let's say, copywriting, the example is I needed a sequence written, and other team members were doing, my marketers were doing something else, and I wanted to just play around to see how quickly I can get the sequence written so I understand how much I'm paying people. And I wrote an incredible sequence, figured out how to integrate multiple pieces of software to get the flow I wanted inside of 30 minutes. The sequence took maybe 5, and the rest was figuring out some integration points that I wanted. So maybe it was even less than that. That's where AI is going to like devastate certain things, where the initial pass for like a copywriter is done in AI. And then someone with more sophistication is going to come in and say, okay, let me tweak this in this way. But then what happens? I give it back to AI and say, learn from this. I want the next sequence written in this manner. And
Mhm.
I did this, and what happens within 60 seconds, I had a five-step sequence for a completely different persona, and it was as good as the one I edited. So that's where I think you're going to see AI really enhance people's skills.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting, and you got to keep the pulse or your thumb on the pulse, right, of everything that's going on. So there's a lot of data coming back to you, and a lot of things that you've done, right, that are creative, that are changing things, that are working the ways that you're outsourcing and creating operational efficiencies with the things that you've done. So, the last three questions that we typically go with our clients is CEO, right? So for Go for CEO, it's C is client experience, E is for engagement, and we talked a lot about that with just culture and everything, and then operational excellence, which I know you have an efficiency on. So client experience from the businesses that you've run and are currently running and are going to run in the future. What do you think are maybe the 60 seconds on value proposition of client experience?
Treat clients how you would want to be treated. Stop. End of story. That's it. Whether that's you're going to want high touch, you're going to want honesty. If you can't deliver something, just tell people that. People understand, and frankly, they'll respect it more. And they'll still give you the opportunity many times. I've said to people, I can't deliver this now, but give me X time and I will figure it out for you. And I won't even charge you because I'm learning as well. So for me, that's how I approach client experience. E is engagement.
Yeah, just engagement. Obviously your Philippines crew and your local people that you network with. What are some of the things that you do that's maybe different to engage with them and they stay connected to you throughout the years?
So for my team, what I do is number one, I treat them like people and I learn about them and their lives. Right? It gives you more compassion and understanding when there are the inevitable problems. You have to understand in a country like the Philippines, there are challenges that just simply don't exist in the United States. So recognizing that and just give people a pass. Assume people are going to be honest. And if they're not honest, then you can go in a different direction. But give people that trust, and I find it actually, generally works out. For engagement on a local level with potential clients or even employees, again, treat people as you would want to be treated. Talk to them, be friendly. If it's a potential client, don't pitch. I never ever pitch. If someone wants my service, they're going to come talk to me when we're just in the course of a conversation. I'm never like, let me see how I can help you. Oh my God, John, sounds like we have that solution for you, which many people do. I'm sorry, but it's annoying. I would rather say, here's what I do, and that's it. And and just learn about their business and their challenges and never actually talk about how you can help them because I think people appreciate that.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me want to go a little bit deeper on that. So that in that scenario, right? What's your thoughts on, let's say, when you were pounding the phone, and maybe a lot of them were contacts that you had in your Rolodex already, but what were some of the techniques in that scenario that you're planting the seed for that eventual opportunity, maybe to connect with them in the future, but you didn't really sell them or pitch them. You were sharing with them what you do with a no context, no obligation scenario.
All right, so I think starting a business and where I am today it's very different, right? If I just meet you, I'm not pitching you, right? So,
Sure.
I would say we're just talking, having a conversation. Even back then, right? I'm just telling people what I do. I'm never pitching. Now, when I'm pounding the phones with existing contacts to try to start a company, I would say, John, I'm starting this business. I know you have VAs. Do you need another one? Let me help you find it. I'll make it worth your while. I'll make sure it's not too expensive. That's it. And just that you have, look, if you're going to start a business, you have to put yourself out there and just say, I'm looking, I'm doing this. Do you need this? Do you need this service or product or whatever? Because otherwise, there's no way to start the business. And if you can't get 10 people to buy the product or service, you're probably in the wrong business, right? Your product's not good or your service isn't good.
Yeah.
That's my attitude. But if I just meet you, I just would talk to you. Hey, this is what I'm up to. What are you up to? And leave it at that.
Yeah, and stay in contact. Like the gentleman I met last night, happens to be in the golf industry. And it was really interesting. At the end, we obviously exchanged numbers, and it'll be a contact for life, just because that initial connection. Some people you just don't vibe with, right? And there's no connection there, and that's okay too. Not everybody's meant for everybody. So interesting stuff. So thanks for going a little bit deeper on E. And then operational excellence, you call it operational efficiency, which obviously you've built businesses to do that. What are some of the things that you are feeling from AI, or is there any softwares that you're using? What are the things that are taking away some tasks and things from an operational standpoint with the way that you run business?
What I would say is that you should fire yourself, or your employees should fire themselves from their job every 3 months. So look at what you're doing and look what can be offloaded to a person or to a piece of software. And that's how I would approach everything these days. I just heard that Shopify CEO, and I'm pretty sure it was Shopify, said that we are not hiring people. First, see if that task or job can be done by AI. So do that first, then come talk to me. And I think that's a great attitude. I would fire yourself. Is an existing team member, or can a piece of software do it? And that's how efficiency will be done in the future or right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's very present. So awesome stuff. Matthew Yahes, Go4CEO community. By the way, subscribe to the channel, become a Go4CEO subscriber, and join the community. Become a part of the things that we're talking about, right? Soon coming up is my book, How to Untangle Any Situation and Think Like a CEO. There's a lot of great things in that book that's coming out in July, so shameless plug. But Matt, anything that you want to promote, ways that people can get a hold of you, what social, channels are you on? All that good stuff.
I just tell people, email me, Matt at Extend Your Team. Look, I'm not going to pitch you a service. If you have a scaling problem, you have an ops problem, you have a business problem, I am happy to talk to people for 30 minutes. I'm not asking for money. It's just my way of giving back and helping others the same way that people help me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, hey, thanks again for joining the Go4CEO community. And yeah, looking forward to having you, be a part of this community, part of someone that we bring back over the next 6, 12, 18 months and check in with you and, from sunny Puerto Rico. So
It
awesome.
is sunny today. I'll tell you that.